What if the first words you spoke to yourself each morning could completely reshape your entire day? Not in some mystical, magical way, but through the actual neuroscience of how your brain responds to repeated thoughts and language patterns. Most of us wake up and immediately start thinking about everything that could go wrong. The presentation at work, the bill we forgot to pay, that awkward conversation we need to have. And here's the problem with that. Your brain doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality when it comes to stress responses. So before your feet even hit the floor, you've already flooded your system with cortisol and put yourself into a defensive, reactive state. But there's another way to start your day, and it's absurdly simple. It involves 10 specific phrases that take less than 3 minutes to say, yet have the power to rewire your thought patterns, reduce anxiety, and prime your brain for success. These aren't empty platitudes or wishful thinking. Each one is rooted in psychological principles that have been studied for decades. Let me walk you through these 10 statements, explain why they work, and show you how to integrate them into your morning routine starting tomorrow. The first thing you need to say to yourself every single morning is this: today is a new opportunity. Not a second chance, not a do-over. An opportunity. And the distinction matters more than you might realize. When you frame today as a new opportunity, you're triggering what psychologists call an approach mindset rather than an avoidance mindset. An approach mindset focuses on what you can gain and achieve. An avoidance mindset focuses on what you might lose or mess up. Research from Columbia University shows that people operating from an approach mindset are more creative, more persistent, and significantly better at problem solving than those stuck in avoidance mode. Every morning, regardless of what happened yesterday, you genuinely do have new opportunities in front of you. New conversations you haven't had yet, new choices you haven't made, new moments where you can show up differently than you did before. Reminding yourself of this fact at the start of your day shifts your brain from dwelling on past failures to scanning for present possibilities. Say it out loud. Today is a new opportunity. Feel the difference between that and waking up thinking about yesterday's mistakes. The second statement is equally powerful. I am in control of my attitude and my effort. Notice what this doesn't say. It doesn't say you're in control of outcomes. It doesn't promise that everything will go your way. It focuses on the two things you genuinely can control, no matter what life throws at you. Stephen Covey, in his book The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, introduced the concept of the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. Most people waste enormous mental energy on things in their circle of concern, but outside their circle of influence. Things like the weather, other people's opinions, traffic, the economy, past events. You cannot control any of these things, and obsessing over them generates only anxiety and helplessness. But your attitude? That's entirely within your control. Your effort level? Also completely up to you. When you start your day by explicitly reminding yourself of these two controllable factors, you're reclaiming your power. You're telling your brain, I might not be able to control what happens today, but I can absolutely control how I show up and how hard I try. This single statement can transform how you handle adversity. When something goes wrong during your day, instead of spiraling into victim mode, you'll instinctively ask yourself, how can I adjust my attitude about this? What additional effort can I apply here? These are empowering questions that lead to action rather than paralysis. The third thing to tell yourself every morning is, I am grateful for what I have right now. And this is where neuroscience gets really interesting. Gratitude isn't just a nice feeling. It's a biochemical event that happens in your brain. When you actively focus on something you're grateful for, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the same neurotransmitters that antidepressant medications are designed to regulate. But here's what makes this so powerful. You can trigger this release yourself, immediately, for free, just by directing your attention. Studies from UC Davis show that people who practice daily gratitude have stronger immune systems, lower blood pressure, sleep better, and experience significantly less anxiety and depression than those who don't. But there's a catch. You can't just say the words mechanically. You have to actually feel it for a moment. So when you say this to yourself, pause and identify one specific thing. Maybe it's the coffee you're about to drink. Maybe it's the fact that you have running water. Maybe it's the person sleeping next to you. Whatever it is, hold it in your mind for 10 seconds and let yourself genuinely feel grateful for it. That's when the neurochemical magic happens. The fourth statement is one that many people resist at first. I will face challenges today, and that's okay. This might seem counterintuitive. Why would you remind yourself that challenges are coming? Doesn't that invite negativity? Actually, no. This is something psychologists call preemptive reframing, and it's incredibly effective at reducing stress. When you expect your day to be smooth and then hit an obstacle, your brain interprets that obstacle as a threat, a deviation from how things should be. This triggers a stress response that's disproportionate to the actual problem. But when you acknowledge up front that challenges are a normal, expected part of every day, something fascinating happens. When you encounter that obstacle, your brain doesn't panic. Instead, it thinks, oh, here's one of those challenges I knew would show up. Now let's handle it. The obstacle hasn't changed, but your response to it has completely transformed. This is the same principle that elite athletes use. They visualize not just success, but also the obstacles they'll face and how they'll overcome them. This mental rehearsal makes them far more resilient when the actual moment arrives. You're doing the same thing, just with your everyday life. The fifth thing to say to yourself is, I choose progress over perfection. This statement is an antidote to the paralysis that perfectionism creates in so many people's lives. Perfectionism isn't about having high standards. It's about having impossible standards that prevent you from starting, continuing, or finishing anything. Perfectionists don't produce more high-quality work, they produce less work, period, because they're terrified of it being anything less than perfect. Psychologist Carol Dweck spent decades studying what she calls fixed mindsets versus growth mindsets. People with fixed mindsets believe their abilities are static, so every task becomes a test of whether they're good enough. People with growth mindsets believe abilities can be developed, so every task becomes an opportunity to improve. When you tell yourself you choose progress over perfection, you're actively cultivating a growth mindset. You're giving yourself permission to be a work in progress, to make mistakes, to improve incrementally. And paradoxically, this mindset actually leads to better outcomes than perfectionism does, because you're willing to take action and learn from the results rather than endlessly preparing and never starting. The sixth statement might surprise you because it sounds almost childishly simple. I am enough as I am right now. But don't let the simplicity fool you. This is one of the most radical and difficult things a person can genuinely believe about themselves. Most of us operate from a deep-seated belief in conditional worth. We'll be enough when we lose the weight, when we get the promotion, when we find the relationship, when we achieve the goal. We're constantly measuring ourselves against some future version of who we think we should be and finding ourselves lacking. This creates what psychologists call hedonic adaptation. Even when you achieve your goals, the satisfaction is temporary because you immediately move the goalposts. You're never enough because enough keeps changing. Telling yourself that you're enough right now isn't about becoming complacent or abandoning your goals. It's about decoupling your inherent worth from your achievements. You can be enough and still want to grow. You can be enough and still pursue excellence, but you stop making your worthiness conditional on external validation or accomplishment. This shift has profound effects on mental health. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology shows that people with high self-compassion, who believe they're fundamentally okay as they are, actually achieve more than those driven by self-criticism and conditional worth, because they're not paralyzed by fear of failure. The seventh thing to tell yourself is, I will learn something new today. This primes your brain to be curious rather than closed off. When you start your day with the intention to learn, you become an active observer of your own life rather than a passive participant. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman explains that our brains are prediction machines, constantly trying to minimize surprise by fitting everything into existing mental models. This is efficient, but it also means we stop paying attention to things we think we already understand. We go through entire days on autopilot, absorbing nothing new. But when you explicitly set the intention to learn something, you activate what's called selective attention. Your brain starts noticing things it would normally filter out. That conversation with your coworker becomes a chance to understand their perspective. That frustrating situation becomes data about how systems work. That mistake becomes a lesson about what not to do next time. This doesn't mean you need to read a textbook or take a course every day. Learning can be as simple as noticing something new about a person, recognizing a pattern you hadn't seen before, or gaining insight into your own behavior. The key is the intention. When you tell yourself you'll learn something today, your brain actively looks for the lesson. The eighth statement is, I will be kind to myself and others. And I want you to notice the order here. Yourself first, then others. That's intentional. Most of us were taught that putting yourself first is selfish. But here's what actually happens when you consistently prioritize being kind to others while being harsh on yourself. You burn out, you become resentful, and paradoxically, you have less genuine kindness to offer anyone else. Self-compassion researcher Kristen Neff has spent decades studying this phenomenon. Her research shows that people who practice self-kindness are actually better friends, partners, and colleagues than those who are self-critical. Why? Because they're not running on empty. They're not giving from a place of depletion and obligation. When you start your day by committing to kindness toward yourself first, you're ensuring that your kindness toward others comes from abundance rather than sacrifice. You'll be patient with yourself when you make a mistake, which makes you more patient with others when they make mistakes. You'll speak to yourself with the same compassion you'd offer a good friend, which makes your compassion toward others more authentic. And here's something most people don't realize. How you treat yourself is how you unconsciously teach others to treat you. When you model self-respect and self-kindness, you set a standard for how you expect to be treated. The ninth thing to say to yourself is, I will take action, even if it's imperfect. This builds on the earlier idea of progress over perfection, but it adds a crucial component, the commitment to movement. Analysis paralysis is real, and it's epidemic. We've become so good at gathering information, weighing options, and considering every angle that we often never actually do anything. We research forever and execute never. But here's what successful people understand that others don't. Action creates information that thinking cannot. You can theorize all day about the best way to approach a problem, but 5 minutes of actual experimentation will teach you more than 5 hours of planning. This is what entrepreneurs call building the plane as you fly it. This is what artists call messy first drafts. This is what scientists call iterative experimentation. You do something, you see what happens, and you adjust based on real feedback rather than imaginary scenarios. When you tell yourself each morning that you'll take action, even if it's imperfect, you're giving yourself permission to be a beginner, to experiment, to fail forward. You're prioritizing momentum over perfection, which is almost always the faster path to any destination worth reaching.
The 10th and final thing to say to yourself every morning is, I am creating my life with every choice I make. This is the ultimate statement of personal responsibility and empowerment.
Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps and went on to become one of the most influential psychiatrists of the 20th century, wrote that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom to choose our response. This is the essence of human dignity and power. We might not choose what happens to us, but we always choose what we make it mean and how we respond. When you start your day by reminding yourself that you're creating your life with every choice, you elevate even mundane decisions. The choice to hit snooze or get up. The choice to eat something nourishing or grab junk food. The choice to speak with patience or with irritation. The choice to scroll social media or work on your goals. Every single one of these choices is a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. This isn't about pressure or perfectionism. It's about awareness. When you recognize that your life is the accumulation of thousands of small choices, you start making different choices. Not because you have to, but because you realize you want to. Because the life you're creating matters, and you're the artist holding the brush. So there they are. 10 statements that take less than 3 minutes to say, but have the power to reshape your entire day. Today is a new opportunity. I am in control of my attitude and my effort. I am grateful for what I have right now. I will face challenges today, and that's okay. I choose progress over perfection. I am enough as I am right now. I will learn something new today. I will be kind to myself and others. I will take action, even if it's imperfect. I am creating my life with every choice I make. Try it tomorrow morning. Say these 10 things to yourself before you check your phone, before you talk to anyone else, before you start consuming information from the outside world. Just 3 minutes of intentional self-talk before the chaos of the day begins. You might feel silly at first. That's normal. We're not used to being this deliberate about our internal dialogue, but stick with it for a week and pay attention to what changes. Notice how you respond to setbacks differently. Notice how your default mood shifts. Notice how your decisions start aligning more closely with the life you actually want to create. Your morning sets the tone for your entire day. The question is, what tone are you setting? If you found this valuable, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you don't need to wait until tomorrow to start. You could say these 10 things to yourself right now and change the trajectory of the rest of your day. The choice, as always, is yours.